So that happened. I think a lot of us are still processing it, but I'm excited to bring out some incredibly important contributors to this film. Our writer and resident genius, Suzan-Lori Parks. Layne. Nick Robinson plays James. KiKi Layne plays Bessie. Last and definitely not least, Ashton Sanders.
So I'm going to ask one question and then I'll throw to the audience for some of your thoughts and comments and questions. But the burning question in my mind is about the collaboration between adapting a book like this, something that is so famous. Like, why make your life so hard when it's your first film? You know, it's this classic novel. Tell me about adapting it together and what that process was like, because you managed to keep so much of the duality of his experience together, but made it modern with this amazing punk soundtrack. Tell me how that came together, please.
I ask myself that question every day. I was like, why did I pick this story? It's so complicated. But bringing it to this time, I think was really quite important. Richard Wright delivered for us an opportunity to tell a story about class and race and really kind of the existential journey of a young man from a certain background to watch how his journey functioned when he's introduced to complicated circumstances. And really a big part of this process for me was bringing in a brilliant writer to help me figure out how to tell this story. And I had certain ideas, but Suzan-Lori Parks played a huge role in how this all came to be. And really one of the fascinating things is, as a visual artist, which is my day job, I had all of these ideas about how this story functioned, all the existential and philosophical questions. And I sat down with Suzan-Lori Parks and I broke down all these kind of philosophical concepts and concerns. And she said, okay, that's great to hear all that shit, but we have to tell a story, right? And her pragmatism and her ability to kind of put and organize some of my concerns and some of the things that we both kind of conjured up to participate in this, and then bringing on so much talent to participate with us. And each of these people was really cast on a glance in a short meeting. I mean, these were, without question, the exact actors that I wanted to play these exact roles. And had these people not been available to make the film, then it just wouldn't be as good, but we would have made the film. But luckily, we were able to bring in the exact people to participate and collaborate in this project. And I really, truly, and honestly see them all as fantastic and enormous contributors to the project.
Do you have any thoughts, Susan, to ask about the process of getting this together?
We all know that stories like this are still happening today. We all know that, but I think what we lack, or maybe what we lack, are the tools to have conversations about those stories. Because the stories now, because they're still happening long after, a couple of years ago we were all walking around, or some of us, some of y'all, whatever. Oh, we live in a post-racial society, right? And we were like, no. But we didn't have ways to talk about the complexities. Bigger Thomas is still going through, like Christ, who has to go through his thing every year. Bigger Thomas has to go through his thing. You know what I mean? It's a recurring thing. We don't have the tools to talk about it, and hopefully this will give us some of those tools. So did I just say Bigger Thomas was Christ? Well. The cycle of it, you know, the systemic cycle of the bullshit.
Let's see if our audience has any questions to bring up while you have them in the flesh to ask. Anybody?
A burning desire?
One at a time. Oh, I didn't see you. Sorry. Yes, ma'am.
It's all right. My voice is really bad, so I don't know if everyone up there is going to be able to.
I'll repeat. Okay.
Alright, cool. So first of all, you guys did such a great job with this movie. I loved it. Like, thank you so much for putting the story out. This is for everyone on cast, everyone who's up there. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself if you had to start production over again tomorrow?
So the question was, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to yourself if you have to go back into production?
But it's important to say that she told us first how much she loved our movie.
There's a lot of gushing.
Not shortchanged with this woman's question, how it began, and then we can move on from there. You know, that's a fascinating question, and you learn so much in the process of making a film. The first thing I would do is I would get more money. But who wouldn't say that? I think throughout the process I became a better communicator as a director, and this is, you know...
You were great, first timer. I knew you were a genius, and that's part of the reason why I signed on. I knew you had a genius vision, and obviously you are everything. If you guys don't know who this woman is, please do your research. She's a national treasure as a writer, playwright. Native Son is such an iconic piece. So for me, it was a privilege to just join this crowd. But from my experience working with first-time directors a lot, they just will leave you kind of alone and do the technical aspect. And I thought that you were very sensitive. And you did your homework. And you had a real vision, and you gave adjustments, and I really appreciated that. And I see that sensitivity in the movie. The movie is, I was so blown away, blown away.
I would have a better alibi.
We have one more question from the lady right there in the red.
Hi, this was brilliant. I was an extra on set actually for 2 days. I'm so privileged to be here. But how did you come up? How did you come up with the idea of punk versus and Southside, like Chicago, versus all the other places in punk?
The question's about the update, was it combining punk and Southside of Chicago?
Actually, we shot bigger, mostly on the north side. So his house was actually on the north side. He lived off of Howard Street, for anybody who's really familiar with Chicago. You know, there was something about Bigger that I thought was an outsider. You know, and I think that he lived outside of stereotype and outside of how we would typically envision a young black male. So one of the things that Suzan-Lori Parks and I, you know, talked about initially was, she likes to be called SLP, so I'm going to call you SLP.
Or it's like, what do they say? It's like a Tribe Called Quest. You can say the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about which ways he could function as an outsider and what kind of cultural tools and signifiers would he employ to then kind of give the audience a sense that this is a guy who's exploring culture and themes in different ways than we have traditionally had the opportunity to experience when we confront young black male protagonists. And so punk was this kind of opportunity. You know, it's a radical music, and in a lot of ways it has parallels to the radicality that we see in genres like hip hop. So to kind of be able to just flip that on its head and give this character a different sensibility and a different agency is kind of how we kind of started to break
But
that
it
down.
wasn't, if I could add, but it wasn't until Big started trying to play by the rules that the shit went down, right? Yeah.
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. What's up, guys? Hey. What was the question one more time?
It was about things getting really hard for the character once shit went down and you began to follow the rules. That's when it got really hard.
It's like once you started following the rules, once you decided to get a job,
Yeah, right.
you know, to be friends with Mary, and friends, you know, share drugs, you know, that kind of thing.
Friends share drugs. Yeah, I mean, this was such a complex character, as you guys know. I think we all signed on because of the complexity of the film and what we knew, what we were creating. Bigger was definitely really complex, and he demanded everything inside of me. I feel like, again, we all can relate in that way, whether it's Rashid or Suzan-Lori Park or whatever creative aspect we had to give ourselves in ways to fully understand the characters, really complex characters. And yeah, so, yes.
Perfect, thank you. We have time for one last question, please, from the audience. Yes.
Hi.
I can hardly see you, sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted you to talk about the ending when you're reinventing something that is classic and timeless. Can you talk about the two final scenes, his death and the cross?
Talking to us about the ending.
The two, yes, his death and your decision to have that happen that way, and then the final scene, the son and the...
And before that, if we could just roll it back, that he does not kill Bessie.
Right.
Okay, so we began to depart.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
Well, we initially wrote it
Sure.
with Bessie's death.
Because we were trying to, you know,
Yeah, we wanted to
be true to
the
yeah.
story. And then I woke up at 3 in the morning after I got SLP's draft, and I was like, no way, we can't do that.
And you texted me, and I was awake.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, we don't
And
have
I'm
to kill
like,
her.
we have to talk about something. She was like, you can't kill Bessie. I was like, thank God. Like, this is
Yeah.
just not a
Yeah.
possibility
Yeah.
right now.
Right,
for
right,
us.
right.
I mean, this at this time, you know, it's hard to tell a story where our intention was to give Bigger an opportunity to be both complicated and empathetic simultaneously. And that was just a step off of a cliff that didn't allow us to tell the story the way that we thought that the contemporary telling of the story would facilitate conversation. Because that level of violence against women at this time in this narrative really would have hijacked some of the more fascinating topics that I think we began to explore in this story. And so we just had an investment in telling a story that's gonna open up doors and open up opportunities for conversation that honestly, that didn't facilitate. So more or less.
It would hijack his character. That's not who he is. So that is what Richard Wright wrote. Richard Wright also wrote a very long and delicious number of pages where Bigger goes to trial. We have him go to trial in the street, because that's what's happening today. So we really wanted to focus on the character of Bigger instead of just the layers and bits of sociological stuff that impacts on him. Richard Wright wrote a beautiful story. He got it right. We're just rolling that wheel that he invented. We're rolling it forward very respectfully. And here we are.
And the Wright family was, when I initially approached them, I was very clear that my vision for this story as a contemporary story would then change some of the direction. And they signed up for that, and they were excited about that. This story has been told several times, whether it's been on the stage or in film, in the way that Richard may have intended it to. He himself changed the story when he made a film in, I believe, the late 1940s or early 1950s, where he kind of changes the direction of Bigger as a protagonist. I'm like, well, if he's already changing the story, right, then if it had begun to evolve for him, I don't think it would have been fair to him as a writer to tell this story in contemporary fashion and say, let's tell it exactly like you told it in 1939. I think he'd be like, wait, are you serious? Is that a good idea? Like, maybe we should think about the world we're living in today and how this character, this protagonist, would have to react, what his agency would be in this time, what his relationship to poverty would be at this time. And several other questions and things that we had to negotiate. And so we had to do that fearlessly, because that's what storytelling is about, and that's what artists do. They fuck shit up. And we fuck shit up. So thank you for seeing our movie.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. Spread the word and tell your